All right, we are live. Finally, sorry guys, we had a little bit of technical difficulties. And today, Pastor Andy wasn't able to make it just because of technical difficulties. Heads up, this does not work on mobile very well. But anyway, we do have the wonderful Pastor Scott Willmore with us from Connecting Point Church in College Station, Texas. Hey, Pastor Scott.
Hey, Tori, how are you?
Doing great. So just real quick before we jump into our conversation, if you are first time tuning into the Serve Brew, we do this once a week, just kind of take a little coffee break and talk about ideas and ways to serve our cities. And we get to jump in and have conversations with pastors from all over the country. It's really fun. So you're always invited to bring your coffee. Today, I'm repping the Los Angeles Dream Center with my mug from my friend Marilee. So just really, it's fun, it's awesome, and one thing that if you have not signed up for Serve Day 16, it's going to be July 16th, 2016 of this year, and you can go to serveday16.com to sign up and get some ideas, resources, but really, it's not about the event, it's just about the life. So Serve Day every day is what we like to say. But that's about it. This week, we are going to be having a special Grow coaching session. We're partnering up with the Grow team at Church of the Highlands, and they're going to share a little bit about what Serve Day looks like there and answer questions. So if you've already signed up, or if you sign up this week, we'll send you a link to register to that. It's just a special call to jump in on. It's really going to be beneficial. So having said all of that, I'm so excited to talk with you today, Pastor Scott. Me and my dad obviously got to visit you guys about a year ago, 2 years ago, maybe more. I don't even know. But y'all were like in the building. Y'all were getting stuff painted and doing like a giant yard sale outreach stuff at the church. It was amazing. So I just want to give you a chance to like gush a little bit, tell the world about yourself for a second, and kind of the vision of Connecting Point Church. So
Yeah,
I'll shut it up.
absolutely.
Awesome.
Man, thanks for having us. It's an honor to even be here. I appreciate it. Yeah, so it was about 2 to 3 years ago. We were actually meeting one of the smaller sides of our building. We had just transitioned from a movie theater over to a permanent facility. Crazy time in our church. It was an exciting time. But since then, over the past 2 years, we've been able to build out our auditorium, our children's area. And so we've made a lot of huge steps in that world. But when you guys were here, man, we were still like, foot in mobile, foot out of mobile. Didn't have much more than just a kids area. And that was just a few walls to kind of corral them. But man, God's just been so good to our church, and we've had the ability to grow. And so we're pretty much, I would say, in our permanent facility full board now. But yeah, when you guys were here, we were getting ready for we were doing a community-wide yard sale, and part of the proceeds of that goes to some of the outreaches that we use with our community. One of the things that our church has always focused on has been, you'll be familiar with this from Pastor Dino, is Servolutions. That's what we call it. It's serving our community. And so that's always been one of our biggest focuses as a church, is to be out in the community or have the community in our walls. We don't believe a church should sit empty during the week. And so we try to do as much as we can within our community. And man, it's just been working out really well. We have a great relationship with Brian in College Station. And man, God's just, like I said, he's been good. It's gone way beyond anything we could have ever dreamed of.
That is so cool to hear. It's cool to hear like how it's grown, because when we got there, me and Dad were both mind blown, but it was definitely like in the middle of becoming. And like we showed up that day, I didn't know y'all from a ham sandwich, and I was like, what are they doing? Y'all had like a store set up. I was going thrifting. It was amazing. And there's like this beautiful mural that was being painted, and then y'all had the cafe that you were setting up, and there's like pallet walls. I was like, these guys are the jam. It was so awesome. And then the team was so cool too, like just being able to hang out with them and hear just like the passion. I know like beginning a church is like a lot of hard work, and just the family vibe that you guys have. At Art Conference, we really missed you, but your team was there, and your wife was there, Miss Cassie. She's the best, and they just jumped in and helped us blitz all the guests got free Kit Kats and like a little outreach card just to kind of promote Serve Day. But they just jumped in and were like so enthusiastic, like, let's do this. Like most people come to a conference and just want to like experience it. They're like, no, we're going to own this. So that was awesome.
Yeah, I think
So,
it's when it's part of your DNA, there's been more than one. It's one of the things that I've noticed is, so the city of College Station, if you include Texas A&M and Bryan with it, we're running somewhere 350,000 people, a huge college. But the city's now calling us when they have events, and they're asking us to jump in and to help, if we'll help serve. And so it's become part of our DNA that spur of the moment, if somebody calls, man, we will send people out. And for us, it's kind of, we use the term being the hands and feet of Jesus. It's being able to get out in the community, and we've had the ability to even serve alongside and be a part of events that weren't, Christian based or what have you. And even through those relationships, we've been able to build a phenomenal teamwork mentality within the city, and other churches have joined in with us. And it's just been we kind of have a kingdom building mentality. And so we're not in competition with anybody. We'll call on other churches will call on us. And I love the way that's kind of trended. And so for us, jumping in at the spur of the moment, I think when it's part of your DNA to serve, that just becomes easy and part of what we do. And our team knows that servolution into the community, hands and feet kind of stuff. One of the things I love, and you'll see it from our staff on down, part of our policy. So we've got a worship team. And if I walked up and said, hey, from our worship pastor on down, if I said, hey, would you guys go serve in the nursery? Or, hey, we need some guys to run out to the elementary school over in Bryan and help them out with something. Man, there's not even a thought. It's not beneath anybody to do anything. And I think when you cultivate that culture and DNA, that, man, it becomes fun. And it's just a natural thing to do, is to jump in, roll your sleeves up. And to be honest with you, Tori, a lot of that we've learned. We've been to Highlands. We've been to, we did with the Dream Center down in Baton Rouge with Healing Place Church. We helped them out with Vacation Bible School. We've learned all that through you guys and through the Ark. And just having that as our DNA, it goes through our entire church. And you'll see people who walk in, part of our easiest step for anybody to take is servolutions and to serve. And so for us, that's a huge on-ramp for people who are looking for that first kind of, how do I plug in? How do I make connections? Hey, we're jumping out over here. You want to come with us? Well, sure. So.
That's cool. I love that you said it's like all levels of your team are involved in serving, and it's not outreach, it's serving.
Exactly.
And I think that's a terminology that, I mean, we use outreach because everybody knows what it means, but I think there has to be a focus of we're all just serving. Like, it's not anything separate, it is all together. And just to know, like, you and Miss Cassie, you guys are personally invested in this stuff. You're not just like, oh, that's my guy for this is here, my guy for that's here. Like, yeah, there's people designated for a team, but every time I'm with you guys, y'all are with the team. You're not separated. You are hands-on, getting dirty, doing the work with everyone. And I find that to be extremely beautiful. So let me ask you this. You said that you guys are becoming known as the church who says yes, the church to call up, like, we're going to be all on board. How did you establish that presence in the community? What were some of practical things that you did as a pastor, as a team, to establish those relationships and that aura?
Yeah, absolutely. I think part of it is, it's kind of like, okay, so you've got your Serve t-shirts, and we were in Baton Rouge. Part of the thing that I love the most is they kept saying, well, when people see the shirts, they know what we're doing. And I think over time, it wasn't something that came easy. I'll be honest with you, in this town, in this area, while it's a Bible Belt area, churches are not, big campus, kind of real liberal area as far as that goes with the academics and stuff. Churches and cities don't typically get along. And I think over the 5 years that we've been here, that is something we have worked hard to do, is to build a trust with our city, with the other churches. And as crazy as it sounds in the Ark world, because churches are so like, hey, let's help each other out, let's be a part of, there's a lot of competitions in the local church. So I believe with us, it has been a very steady process. It wasn't anything that came easy. It's just, as we don't put a lot of conditions around the serving. We have our DNA, but for us, what we say is yes first, and then we figure it out. And I think as the city with us has called us, and we've been able to jump in with other organizations. Another part of our DNA is we're like a come as you are kind of thing. So if there's other organizations that aren't church related or aren't, considered Christian, for us, that's just being a light in a world. And so we don't frown on that. We don't look down on that. We jump in with anybody. They've called us. So we do a huge event at Easter. This year, based on Google Maps and all of that, we had around 10,000 people in the community show up.
Yeah.
Well, we started that literally 5 years ago, and it started small and it's just grown. But through that, the city now advertises that for us. They send people our way. They call up and like, hey, can we help out? And there's another event around Christmas time. That's the city's event that they saw how well we did at Easter. They've now called us and they're like, hey, can you jump in? Can you help with this? Can you help with that? They see us out at the Habitat for Humanity's building homes. They see us. We team with it's called Aggie Pregnancy for young teen moms. And so as we've gotten out in the community, we haven't tried to push any agenda. Our goal is just to serve, is to what can we do for you? And I think through that, we've built trust in that we're not trying to take over their world. We're just literally there to serve our community. And I think just over time, it's a process. So
definitely. It's cool. Like you said, it takes time. It's not just an overnight kind of deal. ARC is amazing in that it's like bringing churches together, but don't forget, like you said, it is hard work to get there. And I think it's so cool that you have a passion to bring people together, because it's rare, but it's going to be huge. And I wish Pastor Andy could have made it, because that's his heart as well. I know both of you guys are great. Side note, I'm going to jump back to what you said, but side note, last week on the Serve Brew, I interviewed Pastor Chad Fisher and Pastor Chris Van Buskirk from Ohio. And at the end, I was like, all right, thanks, guys. And I said, tune in next week for a real manly brew with Pastor Scott and Pastor Andy. And then I ended the call and said goodbye. Well, then Chad and Chris were still on the call, and they were like, what does that make us, Tori? I was like, I'm sorry, guys. It was just me and Dad literally made a spreadsheet of like the descriptions of the different people we wanted to interview. And so we had like Ohio was a description, and then we had manly for you and Pastor Andy. I was like, I'm sorry. That's just what it was literally called, guys. But anyway, I just had to put that in there because your church, if I remember right, when y'all first planted, one of the things that you personally had like a heart for is targeting men. Is that still like kind of your entry point? I know you can't like say one type of person over the other, but is that
Absolutely.
still kind of your...
I would tell you that, yes, and we say this all the time. We say it in our connection. We say it, as a matter of fact, it's funny. We just had this conversation with our staff today.
Wow.
Of, who the target is. Every successful business has a target. One of the passions that I have, and that I think if you ask any of our staff that we have, is we have always said this. There's actually statistics, which are always just statistics, but it says that if a man accepts Christ 8 out of 10 times, the rest of his family will come to church. As to where when the lady accepts Christ, it's only 1 out of 8 times that the husband comes to church with her. So one of the things that we've always said is we believe, and we have a dynamic women's ministry. We have a great fast growing youth ministry. We invest heavily in our kids ministry, but we've always said this, that we believe that to change the community, that if you can get the men back to who God has called men to be, that if the men can get excited about following Christ, that the rest of the family will naturally come. I've yet to come across too many wives who have said, well, my husband wants to go to this church and I've said no, or I don't want my kids going. But when the man becomes the spiritual head of the house and wants to take his family to church, 9.9 out of 10 times, the rest of the family comes. So we've said we're going to target the head of the house, and we believe that God has a huge calling for men. And one of the areas, from the way that our lobby looks to the way that Everything is, we have concrete countertops. We have a lot of metal. We have a lot of wood. We have tile for the floor. We've got some really ugly gray carpet. But everything is geared towards men. And we say we love our women and we love our youth and we love our children. But we firmly believe that if men are who God has called them to be, it won't just change your church. It'll change the community and it'll change the world. And I fully believe that. So just about everything we do, even I call it kind of our shadow mission, is everything we do from the color of the paint that we choose is to make men feel comfortable. We feel like that men want to see somebody like them. We feel like men want their children to be happy. We feel like, and so everything we do, we look at the lens of how will a guy who walks into our church view this. And it shows up in our men's ministry. It shows up even through our community. We've had other churches actually call us and ask us, hey, how do you guys have such a huge men's ministry in comparison to the number of people we even have in the church? And our answer is this: we go after men. We go after men with a passion. And so we believe that's changing. I've had a lot of wives come up to us, you know, kind of behind the scenes. They would never say it in front of their husbands. And they've got tears in their eyes. And they just say, thank you. And they said, you know, I used to have to force my husband to come to church. Now he gets up and he's getting us ready for church. He's so excited. I've never seen my husband excited for church. And honestly, Tori, it's a little bit of my story. It's me saying there was a time, and I was in the ministry. We were working at children's homes, and I was in the ministry, and still it was hard. I didn't feel like I fit in. I fit in at times. And so my wife was dragging us to church. And so part of my story is when I came to Connecting Point, I thought, man, this is the place for us, because I could be me. And it was even geared towards men in that aspect. And from that, if you walk into our church now, 2 years later, I think you would be surprised. You'll see a wide range of socioeconomic. You'll see a wide range of demographics, both denominationally speaking, both racially speaking, you know, all of that. But one thing you'll notice is there are a bunch of dudes here. And I love that. We've got dudes that are ex-military and cops and firemen. And I mean, we've got our young millennials. And the thing I love, I looked at the other day, and I've got a physician, I've got a millennial, and I've got a Harley Davidson biker, and they're all standing together, laughing and cutting up. And wow. So it's a melting pot, because part of our DNA is come as you are. It's not our job to change you. It's God's. We just want to introduce you to him. And through that, again, it's kind of like the city. We don't put any expectations on the men when they come. Our expectation is that, hey, just come. And one of my favorite comments is when a guy walks out, and we get this a lot, and it makes me laugh, and I hope I don't offend anybody out there, but they walk by and they go, hey, that wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. That wasn't that didn't, I don't even want to say the word because I don't know who I was watching. I don't want to offend anybody, but the gist of it, and you guys can figure out the terminology, is, hey, church isn't as bad as I thought it would be. And for us, that's a huge win, because when I have a guy that I believe if we can get them in the doors the first time, that they will continue to come, because it's geared just for them. And so for us, when I hear, hey, church isn't as bad as I thought it would be, I go, yes, because I know moving forward, they'll come back. So.
Dang, that is so deep. Oh my gosh. One thing you just said that I love was that it's part of my story. And I think that what is so cool is that there's no shame in saying, I'm a pastor, I'm called to this. For some reason, God put me in this position, and I'm not going to try to be so diplomatic that I don't tailor something to my story, because God gave you that, and you have a sweet spot in that. And that's because you are walking in that story that God gave you unique to you. You're enabling other people to find their true selves and their true stories. You're not trying to just fit into a box that, oh, this is what we say, target this, target that. You're like, no, this is who I am, and I'm going to reflect my ministry into that. And when you're walking in your fullness, that enables other people too. And the fact that you're targeting men, to me, is amazing, because you might think of like the feminism movement and all that stuff, like, oh, but what about women? But to me, if a man is walking in his full calling, he's going to enable me more to be the woman that I need to be. If my husband, who he is walking in his fullness, I'm not having to like push my walls down. He's helping build this place for me. And so guys are supposed to be the spiritual covering. And I just fully back you on that. Like, that is incredible. So awesome.
One of the things, Tori, that we say is we target men, but we champion women. I have yet to have a wife or a woman, and we're very upfront about it. Like I said, it's in our connection, which is our, 101, 201, you know what all that is. It's in our connection that, hey, this is who we target. And I'm just telling you, I've yet to have any wife or mother walk up and say, oh, I can't believe you would do that. 9 out of 10 times they come up to us with tears in their eyes and they're like, thank you so much. My husband has found a spot and it has changed. And it's not me that's changing them. It's we offer them a view of Jesus. I don't feel like Jesus was a girly man. I don't feel like, he was a carpenter. He was rough and his disciples. Everything I read about it. So we feel like it's absolutely biblical. But I think that society has said it's okay for the guy to kind of skip out on the home, or it's okay for and I just don't find that. We empower men to be who God's called them to be. And the crazy thing is, and when you say part of our story, I would say probably the verse of our church is, and I'm not going to preach to you here, but it's found in the book of Revelation. It's 12:11. It says, and they defeated the enemy by the blood of the Lamb and the power of their testimony, the power of their story. And I think it's absolutely crazy that they put the crucifixion of Jesus Christ in with your story. That's how much power your story has. So with me, I'm the preacher that's got tattoos, and I'm not condoning tattoos. I was in the military for 10 years, whole crazy life before this. But we say, whether you're a three-piece suit or whether you're board shorts and flip-flops, hey, there's a place for you because your story matters. It doesn't say the story of a professional. It says your story. And so whatever story you're coming back from, God's going to intersect people with you that you're going to have impact on. And we want our men to get to the place where they can use their story. And more often than not, a lot of the guys that come to our church, I know it may be just our church, but they've had a bad experience, or they've been burned, or and so for a lot of our guys stepping back into church, a lot of them, it's because they've had a child and it's like, well, my kids need to be in church, but there's nothing about it they want to go into because of past experience, whatever that may be. And so for us, creating an environment where they feel comfortable and safe to just be who they are with no expectation on the front end, God's going to change their heart. I firmly believe that. But when Jesus, even when he called his disciples, he didn't say, hey, get right before you follow me. He didn't say, hey, you need to meet this criteria before you follow me. He said, hey, drop your nets and come on. And then by being around him, their lives changed dramatically. And so that's kind of the theory we use is, hey, come as you are. Like I said, I got three-piece suit and I got tattoos and both sides of the spectrum, but it's just creating a safe environment for them to be who God's called them to be. And it's working. So it's been fun to watch.
It's so cool. So cool that you enable that by how you live. It's amazing to me. So on the topic of stories, I don't know if you feel comfortable going there, but I know that you are walking through some personal stuff right now, and we've been praying for you guys. But like, I know it's tough. I know you've gotten some stuff going that you didn't expect, but
right.
If you talk about that for a second, but has it changed your perspective on like loving other people? I know it seems like you're surrounded by a team of people who just love you and taking care, but you're identifying with pain in a different way. Has that changed your outlook or enhanced it in any way?
Oh man, crazy how my entire life has shifted. My entire outlook on life has shifted. So I'll just nutshell version. At the beginning of January of this year, I woke up one morning. I felt fine. There's nothing going on. I woke up one morning and I had a size lump sticking out of the side of my neck. I called it my pet gargoyle. I didn't know what it was. It was just crazy big. And so I went to the doctor and I told him, I said, hey, I feel fine. Every year I go do a military checkup, and I had just gotten done with it and everything came back fine. So I showed him that. And the doctor said, well, based on your age and your health and everything looks good, I'm going to give you some antibiotics. You've probably got, it's a lymph node, so you've probably got some residual. My kids have been battling strep, at that time. So we just figured that's what it was. Well, about 4 weeks later, it was still there. And so I went back to the doctor and they got me in with the ENT. And the ENT went in and he felt around and he said, I'm looking at your blood work. Everything looks great. Everything looks fine, but that's a crazy knot you got in your neck. So we're going to do a biopsy on it. And he pulled it out. And so that was done on a Thursday. And it usually takes 2 to 3 days, but I had that weekend. And I asked my doctor before I left that day, I said, based on your experience, because he didn't want to, say anything or speculate. But I said, based on your experience, I said, is this going to be a cancer thing or is it not? Because in my brain, I had tried to prepare myself for worst case scenario because it wasn't a natural thing to be popping out, but it had happened overnight and I wasn't feeling bad at all. And he said, based on my experience, you've probably got cancer.
Wow.
And so then I go home and the crazy thing is I had the entire weekend, and I'm going to tell you, I've learned that Google is the worst thing in the world. Oh, it was awful. My wife is a nurse, and she was like, get off the computer. I had Googled everything from brain cancer to toe cancer. I had gotten a list of like the top 10 worst percentage of survival. And I'm like, if I can slide into here, it was crazy how it just changed my thought. My emotions were swinging, thinking about, medical insurance, life insurance, thinking about my children. I have 4 kids and they're from 12 to 4 years old. And I'm like, who's going to raise them? I'm going to die. I mean, just crazy emotions. And so the weekend went through, and then on Tuesday, he called me and he said, yep, it is. He called it squamous cell carcinoma, which meant nothing to me. I said, well, what is that? And he said, you have tonsil cancer. And it wasn't even on my list of 100 cancers. I was like, who gets tonsil cancer? And he said only about 7% of people, get that. And so it was a deal. I spent 10 years in the military. I played some college baseball. I had a lot of my risk factors back in the day were pretty high on the scale of which that's why I was looking at different cancers. I'm like, man, it could be, all kind of crazy things, but it winds up being this. And I'm like, wow, what in the world? And so he told me though, he said, the type that you have is very curable. He said, you're looking at in the upper 80s, 90% based on your age and everything. He said, we've got to find the source of it. He goes, it's in your neck. We feel like it's in your tonsils. We're going to go in, take your tonsils out, and we'll dig around in there. It's already jumped to your lymph nodes. And so the next couple of weeks were PET scans and all of that to see if it had jumped anywhere else, because it's very curable, but it's very aggressive. And so there was all of that fear in there with that. And come to find out, when they went in and took my tonsils out, they found the source of it. So they were able to totally remove it from that area. And then they put forth a treatment plan for the lymph nodes. It had not jumped anywhere else. And so and the doctor told me this. He said, if you could have won the lottery of cancer, he said, you've won it. And he said, you got the kind that's curable. You've got a treatment plan that's curable. He said, but it's going to be pretty rough treatment. It was some chemo and some radiation involved in all that. I'm on week 5 of 7. As a matter of fact, tomorrow I have my last chemo, and then I have 2 more weeks of radiation. It's taken me off stage for the past 2 weeks. Luckily, I've got an amazing teacher / executive pastor who has been able, our board has come on and done phenomenal. I've gotten a ton of response from ARC pastors. Hey, praying for you. So I know prayer has been a huge part of that. But on the grand scheme of things, even as rough as treatment was supposed to be, it hasn't been as rough as I guess it could have been. I've been able to keep, crazy things like my hair. I've lost my beard, so I'm clean shaven for the first time in 5 years. But overall, it's been pretty manageable.
That's good.
But our board and our executive pastor have given me the opportunity. I'm still working during the week, but they've given me some time off on Sundays. But you asked the question, has that made me more? It's made me more everything. It's made me have more empathy for people who are going through, because truthfully, I've never had major sickness in my family. I've never had, my parents are still alive. I've never, God's been gracious in that aspect. But when you talk about storms of life, this was life altering for me and my wife and my children, to be going through this, to realize how short life is, and to the impact that you have on people and how short of time you have with the mission God's given you. And so for me, it's been, one, I'm a lot more emotional. I've told Cassie I've turned into a crybaby over the past, couple of months, but it resonates with me when people are going through stuff. It really makes me look at it from less of a clinical kind of textbook format to, man, a more heart to heart. Man, I understand how it doesn't just affect, like, this hasn't just affected me. It's affected my wife, and I've watched her go through that. She's been magnificent. Super strong, crazy strong in this, but she's had to carry me in a lot of ways, to watch my kids go through this. And so to watch our church rally around, I actually had one of our elders, his name's Dr. Shams, Dr. Scott Shams. He told me, he said, this will actually bring our church closer together. He said, I have no doubt. And it has. Our church has just above and beyond crazy supported us and helped us and loved on us. And so just to see, again, I go back to the hands and feet, and part of the DNA of, man, somebody's down, let's jump in and help. It's next man up mentality. And our church has walked that out. It's not just something, even as a pastor, you sit there and you go, man, we teach it, we preach it, and that's part of our DNA. But when you see it flesh out, like, it has been crazy to watch how God has moved through this in a big way. So, we even went through Easter, which is our huge, time going through this. And nobody missed a beat. Everybody was crazy, enthusiastic, pumped. And we've actually grown, I think, spiritually and together closer through all of this. So it's been a great learning experience for us.
Cool. And what a blessing that you're kind of seeing the fruit of your labor in a weird way. Like, you have taught servanthood, taught where's the pain, let's say yes to it. And now it's probably so humbling to be on the receiving end of it. But you're seeing the beauty and of all the hard work, because it's being channeled towards you and your family. And yeah, definitely going to make you guys stronger, no doubt. When I saw Miss Cassie at ARC, I was like, oh my gosh, she's like beaming. And I had just found out. I was like, what? Oh my gosh. And she's like strong, glowing. She's like, yeah, it's hard, but we're good. We got it. I was like, okay then, sister.
Crazy thing. So Pastor Andy, who was going to be on here today, and Dan, when I found out about it, I shot Dan a text, and I was like, hey, man, this is what's going on. And that day he had Pastor Andy, he told him that very same day, it was probably within 2 hours, Pastor Andy called me, and we have a pretty strong bond in the fact that we're from the greatest state in America, probably the greatest place, just shy of heaven. Alabama ranks right there in the Crimson Tide. Bind us together, crazy. And he called me, and he had just gone through a similar experience. And man, he spoke life into me, because I'm going to tell you, there's been times through this 2 months that I've had to deal with emotions that I've never really felt. Lowest of the low points in my life, as far as discouragement and as far as even questioning my faith. I've dug into Psalms a lot, because I look at David's life when he was, God, where are you? Why? Where? What's going on? And then he always, yeah, but you've always seen me through, and you've always been there for me. And so for me, I've hit some emotions that I haven't felt in a long time, that guys like Pastor Andy, guys like Dan, guys within the ARC have been so gracious. Even other pastors in our church. My wife walked into Lowe's the other day, and a lady looked at her and said, aren't you the wife of the pastor at Connecting Point? We don't go to your church, but our pastor told us about it on a Saturday, that your husband, and man, we've been praying for you. My ENT doctor who diagnosed me with this said, hey, our Sunday school class is praying for you. And so the amount of kingdom mindedness that this has brought on, even, you know, from pastors in the Ark, has just been overwhelming. And like you said, it's humbling to be on the receiving end of this, because you can teach it and preach it, but to watch it in action has just been overwhelmingly emotional for us. So it's in a crazy way, it's been fun to watch. So
in a crazy way. Wow. I love that it's like you said, you talk about it, but then to walk through it, it gives you like this purity about your story and your life and your family. It's like, now we've walked the walk, just like you said. And one of my favorite verses is Ephesians 3 in the Message, and I think it's verse 18, but it talks about like exploring the extravagant dimensions of God's love. And it's like, plumb the depths and then rise to the heights, test the links. And it's like his love meets you every single place. There's no place you can go that his love's not going to come. But strangely, the most beautiful moments happen in the depths, because he flips the depths into the heights. And there's another verse, I'm not preaching, but there's another verse that says he's going to give you, heights in proportion to the depths. So I don't even remember what the reference is, but it is
right.
Psalms. And it's like, he transforms the valley of trouble to the gateway of hope. So exactly the point of pain is where the beauty is. And so even talking in the serving world, that's the exact same thing that we're out to do, is like, where is the pain? Because that's where the most potential for beauty is. That's where hope is buried. That's what we're out looking for. And so for that to just be so close to y'all's heart is like a strange, weirdly packaged gift. Like, why do I have tonsil cancer? I don't know, but gee, thanks, Jesus. It's got a big bow on top and it's going to be beautiful. And so I just think that's incredible. And I love that it's building relationships, and it's just cool to have a firsthand experience and for you guys to walk through it so graciously. It's awesome. And you guys are heroes for it. So
yeah, it's been an experience for sure, but it's, you know, God showed up in a big way all through this. And it's, you know, when you look at, I know there's times when you go, well, was this a God thing? Was that a God thing? God has showed himself huge all the way through this, and loud, and it's brought people, in my opinion, even closer to him, seeing this and being able to see how our church is reacting to that is, I think, a testament to, again, the serving mentality, and to see that teaching servanthood and teaching serving, it works. And it's a huge, huge, important thing throughout the church community, in my opinion. So
that's so cool. What is something that you would give advice to a church who wants to have the heart of serving and wants to walk well in their story? What's something that you would just want everybody to know?
I think that for us, I think it starts from the top. I think one of the comments you made earlier is, I think oftentimes, you know, we teach team building and we teach all of that. But at the end of the day, serving and servolution, what I call servolutions that we got through the Ark, servolution comes from the top down. And you can't have it as just a check off kind of thing that you do in your church. You can't have it as just kind of like, oh, well, we've got that, check it off. It's got to be something that you are passionate about and you go after. You have to look for ways to serve. And the crazy thing is we do a couple of big events a year at Christmas and at Easter that we invite our community in, and we take a whole Sunday morning and we serve breakfast during the worship service and all of that. But you can't look for big splashes all of the time. That serving comes in small groups of people going out into things that, for us, what we've said is I don't care if anybody else notices, that the people who we're serving notice. And that's what it's got to be about, is not the recognition that your church is going to get out of it. Not is it going to benefit us in a big way, but are we true to our calling? Are we true to what we say we're passionate about? And like I said, when you go into the servolution world, it's got to be from the top down. So I think it comes from the senior pastor, because he will set the tone, and the staff, that when they see the staff out, our staff is out there with their sleeves rolled up and they're serving Kool-Aid, or they're building houses, or they're shoveling ditches, or cutting trees, or whatever it is that we're doing, that you'll see our staff with dirty hands and dirty feet, and that permeates through the whole congregation because, again, I go back to just Jesus's model. I mean, he washed feet. And so if he was humble enough to come from where he did to serve others, wow, how, much less humble do we need to be? It's crazy that I just think that a lot of churches look at it as, oh, it's just kind of what we do or it's that cliche that you throw out there. I think and I hope every pastor out there begins some type of servolution ministry. That's why I love the Serve Day 16. It's crazy when you get out into the community that the trust of the church, it's not what are they after, or I'm not good enough and they're going to judge me, or it's, you know what? After you do it consistently and you do it passionately and you meet people where they are. For us, the building, in our building, it's an old storefront. It's a big office, Max. For us, I believe that if you sit and wait on people to come to you, you're going to be waiting a long time. But if you'll go to where people are and you go to where people work and live every day, it builds a camaraderie and it builds a trust. And you've got to get out of the walls. You've got to get out of the security of the walls. You got to get out of the seats. And so my advice to anybody out there, any church or any pastor, is when you start the serving DNA, that you got to be passionate about it. And that's got to come from the upper level staff. That's got to come from the top down. And when they see your passion, it will bleed over into the church and people will get excited about it and they'll follow your lead. But you can't halfway do it because people can spot that from a mile away. But when you come out passionately ready to serve, it changes lives and it makes an impact on your community in a huge way.
That's awesome. So let me ask you this then. Like, I fully believe you, fully agree with you that it has to come from the heart, and that's the leaders, that's the pastor. Yeah. So having said all that, what about, like, as a pastor, I know that there's a million different directions that you're being pulled, your family's being pulled, you are trying to run Sundays, you're trying to run every ministry, make sure it's all good. How do you, and I know that it's a challenge, like every pastor wants to be at outreach, they want to be involved, but like, how do you balance and know I'm supposed to be 100% all in, but at the same time protect yourself and not be worn down? How do you find that balance?
Absolutely. This is where I say, when I said it's got to start at the top. The senior pastor, in my opinion, has to be massively passionate about it. And he's got to massively back it, 100%. But he can't we're running right now somewhere around 700-800, which comparatively speaking, to Highlands and some of those guys is not a lot. I can't begin to imagine what guys who have bigger congregations than ours are being pulled in 1,000 different directions. But what I said is it's got to come from the staff down. And by that, I mean, so we've probably got, and we're set up ARC model. We've got our paid staff, and then we have our dream team leaders, our next level of leadership. And so for us, team building is huge. We have a Servolution coordinator. Her name is Annalie. She's phenomenal.
Yeah, I love her. She's awesome.
Annalie, you've talked to her. So she's over all of that. And what her job is to disseminate and to set up the teams who are going to go where. I don't go to every single Servolution. I have to pick and choose. I go to a lot of the bigger ones. Obviously, the big Easter ones and Christmas ones, that's all hands on deck. But what we've said is that at every Servolution, there will be a staff member there. And we've got, or a upper dream team leader. Our dream team is our leadership team and those who serve. So we'll have a coordinator or we'll have a staff member at every single thing. So when I said it's got to bleed from the top down, you'll see our staff, somebody from our staff representing our staff at any Servolution. So yeah, obviously a pastor cannot be at every single event. He's got to rely on his staff. But when your staff is as passionate as you, that's not a big deal and it's not an issue. And the way we do it, we kind of rotate it out. Now, obviously, if it's with like Aggie Pregnancy, which is teen moms, we'll use a lot of our wives or a lot of our women's leaders to go to that. When it's more of a, Habitat for Humanity or something where you're going to be down and dirty, lifting equipment or stuff like that, we'll send some of our guys out there. But we disseminate it as far as how they, what type of Servolution it is, how many people are going to be involved, and then we rotate it through our staff to equal out the balance of the time that's put into everything. So, that's awesome. And Anna Lee does a great that. She reports back to us, and she's our go-to. You've got to have somebody super coordinated over that, but super people-oriented, because we get so many requests that you kind of even have to disseminate what can our church handle without tipping the balance of, because you've still got to do your day in, day out church responsibilities. So how do you balance time and all of that? So that's kind of how we do it.
Awesome. I like that, because it's a family effort. It's not just you having to make it happen. It's all of you guys, all hands on deck. I love that. So real quick, practically, what do you guys like? I know you call it Servolution. So do you guys have like small groups that are leading outreaches, or is it kind of like a monthly Saturday event, or what does your reoccurring besides the events look like?
Yeah, besides the events, we have a huge point group structure, just like you teach in the ARC. And our point groups will oftentimes, so we have a group that they go out. It's called Peace Place. It's probably the safest kids go during the week, and they provide a meal for them, and they just throw balls with them and frisbee with them. They just love on them. Or we have point group leaders that will coordinate that, and the point groups will go out. One of the things that we bleed down through our point groups is it's a requirement for each of our point groups, whether it is a relational point group or whether it's a study point group, is that each point group themselves, by the end of the semester, has to find something that the group is going to do out into the community as a Servolution. And so each of the groups go out and do, and it's kind of what the group together is passionate about. So we've had them do all kind of crazy things. So, but they all buy into what they're passionate about. So that's the way. And right now, you've got 40 or 50 groups going out every semester into that kind of environment. Well, what starts out as kind of a small thing, when you look at it like, oh, it's just a point group. When you've got 40 or 50 point groups going out, that's a big movement. So we do that. We have different people in the church that are passionate about different things. We have a Wednesday night deal. So during football season, when the football teams can't make it to church, we have a group that goes out and provides dinners for the football team, and they have a little chapel kind of thing out there. So we've got some guys who are passionate about the football team. They take it upon themselves to go out and do that. So it bleeds all the way down through our point group system and through our dream team and through our Servolution team. So it bleeds all the way through the church.
That is super cool. It's like a cool way to do it. Like here at Highlands too, it's small groups, so you enable people in their dreams. Like, go do it. Our imaginations only go so far.
Exactly.
Go for it. And I love that y'all do it for every semester. Like, you're gonna do a serve project that's part of it, because honestly, like, people got to get the itch too. Like, you don't know until you try. Then once you serve, it's just like, oh my gosh. So do some of these projects like become reoccurring and like end up being? Yes. Okay. So like,
yeah,
I guess
absolutely. Some of them do, some of them don't. Things. We have some groups that like to do something different every time.
Cool.
But oftentimes, so like Peace Place, the one where they go out with the children, that's become kind of a mission of the church, so to speak. That's become a weekly event. Habitat for Humanity, where we go out and build some homes. That's kind of become a yearly type thing that started out with just point groups doing it. So a lot of times they will become a regular occurring thing. As far as big events,
or would that be, led by the Connect groups, or would that be something that you guys kind of adopt as the church as it grows?
That it depends on how big it gets. It's kind of like you said, man, whatever you're passionate about. We have people that will take a ministry way further than I could ever dream of. And so oftentimes what will be is a small project that somebody's passionate about. They'll build a team around that. And then as it gets bigger and into a ministry of the church, so to speak. It will be more of a church thing. But oftentimes our point group leaders do a phenomenal job of taking those projects on themselves and letting that be a point group activity. And one of the things I love is that actually brings the point group together even more. More often than not, I have people come back and they're like, man, I went out there thinking I was going to be helping somebody or I was going to be ministering to somebody else. And the reality of it is holy cow, that changed my perception, or that changed me in a way. And it's that it factor you were talking about. Some people will go along not even really realizing what a servolution is or what and they're just like, oh, well, we're going to go out and help the disadvantaged. And they come back and they're like, that helped me way more than it could have ever helped them, because it gave me a view of, wow, the impact that serving somebody else can have. It changes lives, and it usually changes the people who are doing it just as much as the people who were the recipients of that. And that's fun for me to watch, because you see people when they get that it factor, and I call it, they get that itch. When they get a great experience on a servolution, you almost can't stop it after that. It's like, hey, I want to go do this, and I want to go do this, and I want to go do this, and I've got an idea, and I've got an idea. And oftentimes you kind of have to rein that in, because you're like, okay, there's only 7 days in a week, and we can't do 300 things. But I would much rather have to rein in enthusiasm than to try to get people motivated. And I think as your church, as that bleeds into the DNA, that the it factor becomes an excitement, and you'll never have to get people motivated to do that, that they will come to you with that, and it will definitely take on a life of its own.
That's awesome. That's magical. Serving has something magical about it. Like, yeah, you're going to change someone's life when you're out there doing it, but it changes you back. But then it's like when you're serving alongside people, something connects the two of you together, the team. It's just like this weird super glue that happens, and it's just crazy. It's magical. And yeah, monsters get created, but it's beautiful monsters, and it's awesome.
I'll go even back into this a little bit to circle back to what we were talking about earlier. Even with, so our outlook is the men, right? Yeah. And so even within our servolutions, it all ties back into our shadow mission of men, because at the end of the day, most men don't like to sit down and across the table and sing Kumbaya and tell each other our problems, right? Most men will, however, when you get a hammer swinging or you get some physical activity, whatever it is, oftentimes there is major ministry involved within the team that is actually serving other people, because guys, when they're out there, they let their guard down. It doesn't feel like a counseling session, or it doesn't feel like, an emotional thing. But as they're out there sweating, or as they're out there doing something, walls go down and you start having conversations. And next thing you know, you're watching within the teams, guys ministering to guys and not even realizing it's happening, but it's a natural progress of, hey, we're out just kind of working together. And then we kind of start talking. And then that leads into, we start ministering to each other. We start lifting each other up. We start realizing, hey, I may, be in this demographic and you may be in that demographic. But at the end of the day, we have the same fears. We have the same goals. We have the, I just want to be a better dad. I just want to be a better husband. I'm scared to death to be raising my daughter. But through the serving, you have ministry happening just on the aspect of your team is getting closer, and your team is ministering to each other. And that's one of the things for me. I sit back and I just smile, because I start watching our Servolution teams. You see them all of a sudden, guys who each other in church. You watch them on Sunday mornings. Now they're in a lobby hanging out together, because they've had that moment and that trust over building something or raking somebody's yard or just doing something that didn't seem like a big deal. They've created a bond and a trust that now when they walk in on Sunday, they have somebody to look for, somebody to connect with. And that just grows them deeper into the church, which again leads them to, it's a more comfortable place for them to be. And now through that, they're able to walk in and it changes the family dynamic too. And then you start watching them bring their kids to Servolutions. you've not just changed a family dynamic, you've changed generations. So,
Dude, you got it figured out. Oh my
I
goodness.
learned from some really smart people. That's what all that's about.
Wow,
So.
that's incredible. It's cool because it feeds into each other. It's one dimension after another, just woven back and forth, back and forth. And it's crazy. You do take your guard down when you're serving with people, and how important for outreach leaders to be keeping our heads on swivel on not just this one-to-one dimension, but there is a full circle of interactions happening, and it's our job to make the experience amazing from top to bottom, left to right, for those being served, those serving, side by side. Like, there is so much happening. And so thank you for shining light on that. That's a really cool perspective and thing to remember. So I know we're kind of getting to the end of our time, but just one more question. I wanted to follow the end of it. Well, actually two. Okay, I'm gonna add two because I can't pick. One is just real quick snapshot. Do you guys have anything planned yet for Serve Day on July 16th? Are you still thinking that through? And then the second question is, what piece of advice would you leave us with for just anything that you want to tell the world? Just whatever it is, just say it.
Absolutely. Serve Day 16, we're still working through that. We've got several good ideas. And so we're trying to figure out, do we want to blow it up like in small groups and kind of do a buckshot thing? Or do we want to try to make it a one big event type deal? It's crazy, because July for us, there's no students here. People scatter. It's probably our most scattered month. And so we're looking at possibly to have the most impact. The biggest decision right now is, do we do it as kind of a buckshot where we're hitting several items, or are we going to try to do a one big thing? And then once we figure that out, we'll work our way through that. If I was to leave anything with anybody, my one piece of advice is don't be afraid of your story and use your story. Use your story because your story matters. I go back to that verse. It is huge for me. Huge, because I've got some big scars in life, and I had a time in my life when I was crazy and stupid. And the fact that I'm able to use that, whatever the enemy means for bad, God can use for amazing. And so I would say, as a pastor, don't be afraid of your past. I would say, as a church, don't be afraid of the stories that are in your church. Use them because it has massive impact. And you have no idea that through your story, who's going to be touched by that, who's going to go, wow, if he can do it, I can do it. If she can do it, I can do it. And don't run from that. Don't try to hide that. Use that because God's going to use it in a huge way. So your story matters, and you were created to have impact, and you can have massive impact through your story. So don't run from it. Don't run from your past. Let God use it in a big way because you are a new creation, and he's going to use that for an amazing, amazing purpose. So that's kind of, it's not much, but that's about all I got. So.
Boom. No, that is deep. That is deep. Powerful stuff. Well, I really appreciate you taking time out and continuing to send prayers your way for you and your family. And I know God's got it fully under his control. And in Jesus' name, the beard's coming back. It's coming back.
It's coming back.
It's coming back. All right. Well, thank you so much. And all right, world, we'll tune in. I think next week, maybe we'll talk about dates soon. Just keep in touch about Serve Brew for possibly next Monday or the week after. Link coming soon. Bye.